That's Xmithie's strong point is he gets this vision control for his team. It lets his laners play a lot safer. I think their laners struggle a lot in this. Even their balling, their whole team struggles a lot, and if he was able to go get wards as Rek'Sai, that'd help his lanes a lot.
Interestingly enough, he opts for a completely different path here, however, going for the Graves, going for this more carry-oriented jungler. Now, we saw, obviously, in the hands of PvP Stayos, it did really help demolish CLG in the previous game, but let's talk about this specific matchup, because when we came into this tournament, we thought Nidalee, Elise, maybe some Zac. We didn't really see Olaf or Graves on the map, and now these are two junglers being prioritized very early.
I think Graves' priority went up a lot because they just lost to it, so I think they're just thinking, we need this Graves. Like, it really hurt them losing to Graves, and when Graves becomes unkillable, it's really hard for your team to look past his weaknesses and just see this huge strength for him. But I think this matchup is pretty favored for, like, it's actually like kind of 50-50 because like Graves has this range advantage, he can kite around. I think this game is going to be more focused on solo lanes, especially a Syndra lane is such a highly aggressive lane. If I was the jungler, Olaf, I'd focus on that lane, kind of get wards around mid, make sure he can play his aggressive role.
And we'll see throughout this game now, you've got two junglers who, if they get ahead, are just going to walk into a lane, walk into a fight, and just take somebody out. And considering how Xmithie's been a lot more aggressive, perhaps, than we saw in the regular split, seems like that Reignover bootcamp a little bit seems to have paid off. So CLG certainly still in the running to get out of this group. But with our focus on this jungle matchup, I don't think we could have picked two better champions, really, apart from maybe if we'd have had the Elise and the Nidalee, which is kind of comparable, but should be an explosive one.
Definitely explosive, and once again, this group just has not gone as predicted across the board. G2 0-4, CLG 2-2. Pressure on for both of these teams for very different reasons, but CLG really taking time on their final rotation here, and it's going to be interesting to see what mid lane matchup comes in here. In the past, Lissandra has been such a great pairing with Graves when Graves was probably too strong, probably OP, when he could just roll up, use that CC, and take people out, and I'm curious if CLG will look for something similar here.
Likely the Vlad, and as we say that, just a second too late on it getting locked in. I was like, Aurelion Sol's banned. The Vlad is going to be the one likely to be the pickup here, which, when you look at the amount of damage that CLG have, makes for a very explosive setup here. They're relying a lot on the Jhin to set up fights, comboed with a Poppy flank potentially coming into this. So Xmithie's role, how does this kind of change as a jungler when you look at this setup, which can struggle to start fights?
I think you're really playing that back line. You have the Jhin for that pick, and it's like, you're just there for that damage in the finisher. You have Poppy as a front line. I think one of the problems they lacked last game was not having that front line. So having this Poppy fill in, it's going to help Xmithie play the carry role more. And just their team fight looks really strong. They have the Jhin, the Vlad, that's super hard to deal with. The enemy team has Rumble, Syndra. Like, you have a lot of ways to like keep away from them. It looks good for CLG's side. I think jungle matchup might be kind of stale. They're going to farm it out, and the real, I think Olaf will be the first person to make them first move, and if that goes well for them, they can snowball.
And we've talked about disaster in the laning phase, and so you just have to remember that all the assumptions that we're making are based around the fact that we don't want to see 2v2 kills going down. We want to, assuming that the laning phase goes even, it feels like the junglers can just farm out. It will be stale, as Inori mentioned, but God, if anyone gets a lead here, it just feels like such an explosive game. But at the same time, I feel like the disengage tools coming in for CLG are insane, and it's not like there's a ton of engage tools present on the side of G2.
The difficulty for what G2 are bringing in when it comes to how CLG play around it is you've got the pillar, you've got the long-range kind of stun from Syndra that is setting up this Ezreal, setting up the Olaf Qs that come out to get all of this kind of combination on slows and damage. So if CLG start getting caught and they're trickling in just like we saw in the last game, that is the dangerous point, because there's all of these kind of abilities that are very good in those situations, catching on one person and keeping going. But this jungle matchup, we're going to be looking at it as we get into game with the focus of it. And as you said, I think farming for the beginning, Inori, is going to lead us to potential lane situations, and I don't think we're going to end up in a 2v2 kill, as you were talking about Tsepha.
I think I'm looking at the Olaf side, and I see like the lanes I can gank. I'd probably stay away from the Vlad, and also the Braum can really deny your axe if he blocks it. I think the Poppy lane is the best lane to gank for Trick. I would see him Trick to pressure the Olaf, the Rumble lane. It seems a lot better for him because he can hit the Poppy once and just run at them, and they can't really stop that. That'd probably be the best for Trick, and I think for Xmithie, he doesn't really have that many options for ganking. He'll probably play more farm oriented and look to scale into the hyper carry Graves.
Interesting spot to be, of course, as we do get into the game. But don't forget to connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll choose some of those questions during the game and answer them live for you. And if it is that stale farm fest that we sincerely hope it's not, it's the perfect time to get in those questions, whether it's for Inori, Stress, or God forbid, myself. Keep them coming. We always like to hear what you guys have to ask and what you have to say. but both teams leaving right off the gate. Now, early jungle pathing for Olaf feels like he's always going to have to start around a blue. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, most of the time you really need that blue. You're just spamming your axes constantly, so some creative way I saw was Reignover. He actually started topside and he went to the enemy blue and just took that one for himself. But in the end, it's going to rely on you getting one blue buff.
See a little bit of trading in the mid lane. Xmithie peeking his head in. No early level 1 aggression. Neither team going to throw it away or anything too greedy here. But now moving in, standard itemization looks like coming from both junglers. Hunter's Machete, the high DPS Graves, and then of course Hunter's Talisman, I believe, coming in for Trick.
I mean, you know, we saw CLG playing that tricky game in game 1, obviously, when they had the red side. It was the first game of the tournament where they made that play onto the Krugs where it looked like Darshan had given a leash and they ended up moving around. Unfortunately, we're not going to have that kind of trickiness in this game. That would have been too perfect to get that out, but Xmithie and Trick, both known for some of that aggression. Xmithie looks like he wants to go.
So I want to ask you, Inori, I'm always curious about this. In pro games and level 1, when you have kind of just a very defensive start like this, are you ever really paranoid that there's just the whole team waiting in a brush somewhere, that you've missed something? Like, how much of a fear is there that someone's actually going to cheese you with the level 1 and go for those aggressive plays?
I think most of the time, if you're as a jungler and you're standing in that spot, you're 100% safe. But the only problem is if your mid misses a point where they might have snuck in through like the mid side brush. I think that happened to me once. I got really mad in scrims because I just died because I didn't know my mid left to ward right side, and they snuck in and just killed me. But most of the time, you're relatively safe. Sometimes you can spam dance and play with other jungler too.
Of course, interestingly enough, it's not going to be the blue buff start. Going Krugs into the Raptor here. Do you think he's maybe looking to set up some kind of gank, or is this just clearing as efficient as possible?
It's more common to leave your red buff up later on. I brought this up before too. Like, you always want to let the gank buff be last because you're farming early to get the first level 3 power spike. So you go do your blue, or like he's going to do his wolves, but you want to get the blue buff as soon as possible because you really can't spam axes that much.
And you can see how important the axes are as well, because you can see Trick's mana bar constantly dropping down, and he has to utilize as much of the time, you know, kiting around, get as much of this lifesteal back from the camps as he can the lower he goes. So for Trick, hits that level 3, here we go on the blue buff that you were talking about.
But it is interesting because it does give the bottom lane the opportunity to take the Gromp in their pathing, setting them up for a little bit more control, and additionally, if he smites the blue buff now, it will give him a lot of that mana back.
Interestingly, Xmithie actually took the small raptors away from the camp right as PerkZ put a ward down, so trying to just kind of speed up his pathway. Is that something you've seen a lot of junglers do, Inori?
Not too much, but you're just scared of like potentially them screwing over your Raptor. You just want to get the small one secured and then back it up. I really like that ward by PerkZ. It puts a lot of pressure on the jungler, showing where he is, gives you a lot of more information on the map. And as Trick, you get to play more of an aggressive role because you know where the jungler is. You can see his buff, you see his pathing. It just gives you too much information.
Trick.
Oh, Stixxay so low.
Exhaust comes out. I mean, that's a summoner spell burned. Wants to get it in the end, but it's traded, of course, back in the end. Flash coming out, exhaust coming out. Trick. That's a pretty successful gank from early Olaf.
I definitely think it's good. I think they wasted the exhaust because, like, you know he's going to flash the first act, so might as well just let him get the flash. But still, it's a really good gank by Trick. He saw the Graves' position through PerkZ' ward. Like, a little bit of vision helps a lot.
How much, though, does this upset what Trick wants to do? The fact that Xmithie goes right up into the top side, saw exactly where Olaf was, now takes away his red.
See, it's all about when you show, you need to know that other jungler knows everything. Like, if you show you have blue, you don't have red, they're going to know the red is still up. Losing this red buff sets plays up like this, where Graves now has a red buff, and he's going to come behind expect. I don't know if this can kill, like...
Darshan, a little bit hesitant to go in
Yeah,
here.
I don't think this will be a kill unless... What?
Oh, no!
Okay.
First blood, all right. I mean, that just feels like a massive
This is huge for them.
misstep from Expect. It seems like he should have known that Graves would move in to start stealing jungle.
This is just the jungler not communicating enough information to his laner. Like, you should know if you show and the Graves is gone, like, he will counter by taking your topside jungle. It's like jungle 101 at this point in competitive level. You should know if you show bot side, the jungler knows your top side's up to grab, they're going to take your top side jungle.
And I think it's one of the problems that we've seen from G2 is somewhat of a lack of communication when it comes from Trick and expecting the rest of the team. Rarely we actually see it between the jungler and the top lane themselves. So, you know, Expect pushing up a little too far, and it looked like perhaps the trading onto Darshan made it so that they couldn't actually capitalize on the kill, but just about get it with that buckler toss at the end of it. But for G2. This is pretty devastating here. They need this Rumble to be a big power point as they get through the game. And you can see Trick now back into the jungle on his walls.
Even potentially more terrifying as we see Trick clear up here. We talked about how snowbally this matchup is, and now Xmithie has a very definitive lead. Yes, he's down 2 CS, but he has a kill now in the early game. And Inori, you mentioned earlier how snowbally this matchup is. Does it just feel like Xmithie should be able to push this one even further now?
It just really depends on Trick's next move, because now it's more important for you to either keep it like relatively close or trying to push it to even. Right now it's obviously Xmithie's ahead, and Xmithie still is, he can't capitalize on leads as much as any other jungler. He has this farm-oriented style on Graves. Like, you can't really pressure too much with your leads, but you can just become this force where if I'm going bot in the Olaf spot and we fight, I'm going to win. So that's his advantage right now. And also he can just push up into the river. A really important thing is river control. If you're the stronger jungler, you can just go into river and take that control. And by giving that kill up, he kind of got that advantage through.
And you can see how the mid lane push as well affects it. Like Huhi just shoved PerkZ back out of the lane, which gave Xmithie the ability to go down into the bottom jungle and now down into the bottom side. But he was warded all the way through, so not going to have too much of an impact from this position. But with both junglers having their first back, we've got the Lucidity boots coming out on Trick. More axes more frequently, pick them up and throw them more frequently and get just some more of that damage down. Is that something that you commonly see on Olaf?
Yeah, I think the big thing about CDR boots is you lower that ghost cooldown. It means you want to play more aggressive style where you want to go for those hard ganks with ghosts. You can freely cast it and just use it for every gank you can. So right now, like, I look for it in whichever lane I can snowball, I'll try to go for a ghost gank because I know the cooldown's gonna be super short and it should be safe for him too.
Syndra moving up to the top side. Looks like we may have a coordinated effort here from Trick, but he will be spotted out. Doesn't have level 6, mind you. Poppycopter. Gonna kick him out on that one. Equalizer, question mark?
This is weird.
That's a big question mark.
Stun goes wide. G2 really looking desperate right now. That was a little bit poorly executed.
A fair few whiffs and a lot of, summoners used on that side. Meanwhile, Xmithie was down in the bottom side and actually didn't use anything. While CLG were trying to pick up a kill down there, he was spotted on a ward. So G2 trying to make the most of this by trying to take the blue buff.
Does get the smite off Flash going in. This is pretty disastrous. Xmithie just a spectator to this fight as Huhi looks at the 2v1, does get the damage down. PerkZ now in trouble, tries to turn it with the ult, but Vladimir picking up a kill. 1-0-1 now to score for the junglers. Huhi throws up that sweet CLG pride.
So much used by G2 on that top side, trying to get into that lane. And I mean, Xmithie was able to recall from bot side and get all the way up to the top side to try and turn this one around. You can see he's only just coming in now as they were trying to take this blue buff away. So, a good capitalization from CLG on G2 using too much.
Throws it down, does not get the stun in time. Unfortunate. And we're going to watch the rest of this one play out. It's pretty devastating overall as G2 now drop another kill. Xmithie continues to get ahead, and Trick hasn't really been able to find an impact play yet.
I think it's just such a desperate move for such an early game. Like, I don't think you have to make such a move where you're diving, throwing all your ults just for a potential kill. You already zone the Poppy off the tower. Just take that away. Pressure the top tower, maybe invade the jungle after, but you use all your ultis and maybe Ghost on Syndra for nothing, actually. So they're trying to, like, play desperately when I think the game's still relatively close. They just stall it out and kind of play more smart.
And isn't that exactly the same kind of feeling when we look at that game 1 of today against the Rock Tigers with that mid lane play that you saw out of Trick that you were talking about? It's the same kind of, like, I have to make something work out of the jungle now.
I think Trick is just a jungler who plays off instincts, kind of like a wild animal. You can't control him. He just goes crazy. He just pounces on people. He doesn't really think too much of, like, maybe where the other jungler is. He kind of, like, says, hey, I'll 50-50 it. If he's here, I get away. If he isn't, I'm going to die.
Yeah, TP coming in here. We'll have to see. Wild animal on his way down.
I love what Xmithie just did there. Put the smoke grenade right on where Expect was appearing, so wouldn't have had any vision on how to react on TPing in. So no real way of actually utilizing this Rumble because he can't even look across the stream.
Well, as we see G2 set up what it looks like to take this tower. You spoke of wild animals pouncing on people. Well, Insane has a question for you, Inori. We thought it would come out eventually, but would Rengar have been good for CLG? More importantly, I think the real question we want to ask here is, where does Rengar rate right now on the tier list of junglers? Although we may have to hold that thought as expect.
See what's going on here, ball lane.
Huh? Oh. Burning down, Deathfire touch.
Nah, not
Creeps
quite.
are dying, he's gonna heal it up.
Okay, for Rengar, viability is... There's so many strong junglers right now, it's so hard to find a good spot for him. I think he's definitely viable, but you really need to play really smart as Rengar. You just need to make sure your time is not wasted, because you have to always try to get ahead of the other junglers so you can snowball. I think Rengar would pair really well with Malzahar. That's what we run a lot. I think it's just such a good pairing together, having the Auras just synergize well with each other, and he can snowball really hard off the CC. So I think that was probably the best bet for him.
So if CLG picked Malzahar here, do you think Graves or Rengar is the better jungler?
I mean, if Xmithie was Inori, I'll definitely go as the Rengar, because that's just, it's just too fun.
All right, well, back to the wild animal.
Oh!
Wow.
That's
unfortunately got put down, as it turns out. Poor Trick. That's just unfortunate.
And this is so frustrating, because you're talking about Trick being a wild animal. Xmithie now is going to get the second red buff of this game out of the top side. And, you know, in Europe, we kind of knew Trick as this consistent, solid, like early and
flexible.
mid-game.
Could be farm focused, could gank his lanes. Definitively the best European jungler. We gave him MVP twice.
I know.
He earned it too. He single-handedly won his team games, and now it feels like he's single-handedly throwing them away in PerkZ.
He's got the moves.
Well, here comes collateral damage. Oh, it's not quite up. It will be soon, though.
Yeah, going back to Trick, he's playing like solo queue, to be honest. I don't know what to say too much. Like, I can like rail on him so hard, but I kind of feel bad at this point, because, you know, at least he's trying. He's trying to play more aggressive. Like, he's trying to give his team advantages, or he's trying to get himself advantages. I don't know too much about that, but you're like half health. It's just
what? Zven's no mana.
It's like you miss the first axe. You're like, all right, well, I'm committed, and you
exhaust.
You just get smacked by a support to the face.
Did that heal not connect either?
I'm not too sure. I think it might have been laid.
Oh, this is brutal. 3-0 for CLG, 18.7 to 17.0, and Mithy is.
This should be okay. I mean, you have both sums up, but I guess better to save.
Oh no.
Now Zven's caught the wrong side. Luckily, he has Trick and PerkZ with him.
I think Mithy was just trying to save himself. He's like, you're on your own, Zven. I'll see you at base.
All right, this seems like a pertinent question as we source out of Twitter once again. Axe Slayers 27 says, is there a way to shut down a Fed Graves? I want to know this too. How do you deal with Xmithie right now?
There's really so little ways to stop. Like, stopping a Fed Graves is like trying to stop a Fed Yasuo. You just gotta hope they get overconfident and they throw the game themselves. Like, that's kind of how you play around. They're so strong if they play the kit correctly. It's so hard to really beat them. It's just the kit is too inflated, where they have combat stats, they have too much damage, and then the defensive stats is ridiculous, and then you stack health so you can't even kill them. It's just really hard. I really hope they tone it down, because I think Graves is really like just too strong right now.
Yeah, he's super strong, and as long as he gets any kind of a lead, this is one of the champions that a lot of teams will talk about. Well, it's like this Olaf and Hecarim. If they get ahead in scrims, they just basically win, because they end up with 16 kills. That's the game done. Very rarely do you see that translated to competitive, but we're seeing a lot with Graves now that a lot of the other junglers have been toned down on their ability to gank early, and, you know, other junglers that have that in their kit. It's fairly difficult, because you can't really stop Graves farming to get to a point where he's at least useful, and if he picks up one kill, he kind of becomes this level where he can just walk into a lane and destroy Mithy.
And he's not quite at that 16 kill toxic scrim point where teams are just terrified of this champion, but 1 kill, 2 assists, a decent CS lead. Now, Inori, for Xmithie, what is the next major item that he's going to look to complete here?
It would be either you have enough for your PD, or you're going to build tier 2 boots and Zeal. That's probably the most likely. If you want to go wild, you can go Ghostblade and just go for like the one-shot build where you're just going for the pen, the QR burst. But the way I actually is going defensive, I think it's Hexdrinker's good, because Syndra is, okay, if there was any other mid, I don't think he would have went for Hexdrinker, just because Syndra is a champ where it's like, you just press QR and you're like almost dead. So it's a good buy, but I would have gone for PD still, just because of how much I'm snowballing. And the enemy team is like, they're pretty behind. I think Trick really played that early game poorly. He didn't really help his lanes. They actually put them all behind more. It's kind of unfortunate, but this is like the situation they're in now.
Yeah, very... just not at all what they wanted from the early game. You're going to see this buff get donated over to PerkZ. Trick trying his best to finish up this Cinder Hulk here. Now, for Xmithie and just for Graves in general, we saw a shift at some point. I can't remember exactly what it was. Switching to attack speed on that second item instead of just continuing to build raw AD like a Youmuu's Ghostblade. I'm curious why we saw that shift. Why are we seeing now the Phantom Dancer as such a common second item?
There was a buff where they switched how crit worked on Graves. It became better to where you can get more damage output through crit. When your spell's hitting, while the crit build just relies on you right-clicking people and hitting your bolts. It's a lot more damage output. It's the way to go. You just get that PD and helps you duel too, reduces damage output. It's a strong build. I think Maw is still really OP because it synergizes really well with him.
Oh no.
I don't think R will kill you. You just kind of let him go away.
Yeah, Xmithie, he gets a flash. Either way, he dashes in, gets 2 autos, and instantly expect has to flash away, and they now have pressure onto their second turret. So Xmithie has had such a big impact on this game in a positive way for his team. And as you're talking about, Trick has made it fairly difficult to get anything done. And honestly, for G2, this game suddenly becomes a lot more about Zven in the far late game for this, which unfortunately Trick doesn't have too much of an impact on, unless he can somehow find a couple of targets in a team fight.
And I think you talk about somehow finding something. I think it just goes back to what Inori said earlier, in that Graves, like Yasuo, like these really strong snowbally champions, it's just at this point for G2, you're really waiting for your opponents to make a mistake, and that's just not at all where you want to be, especially because Trick just now finishing up that major jungle item, and at this point, he's never going to be able to build anything offensive. He's just going to have to build defensive items, it feels like. Yeah,
I think Trick definitely hurt this game a lot for his team. I think Xmithie is just playing smart. Like, it's just so simple. He's just playing off his information he gets. He sees the jungler bot, he's going to go topside, take topside jungle, he gets the red, he sees top lane overextending, he goes for the gank. Like, he's playing really just common sense-wise. And I see Trick, and he's like, kind of like herpa derp, I'm going to go ulti bot, I'm going to chase in when I don't have any health. It's like, it's just not viable. Like, he's not really playing that smart. And I've been seeing this a lot, like, through his recent games. I don't know if it's tilt where he's like, oh, I have to carry the team on my back sort of thing. Like, I can't rely on my team anymore. But it's just such a bad style, and it hurts his team so much. And Stixxay's actually...
Nice block from Aphromoo.
How's
Mithy on the way in.
Trick, though, coming in?
They're trying to get something, a good disengage.
Forgot the press off.
Call coming out, curtain call.
Such a weird
Mithy. Oh no. Ooh, bullet goes wide. Mithy still is going to drop. Darshan potentially in trouble, but PerkZ also taking a lot of damage. This is...
It's on in the fight. Like, he gets hit by the Braum ult when he realistically had Stixxay right in front of him.
I think he should just ghost ulti through that, power through, and try to go for the kill, because I think he could have got the kill too. Like, even if Vlad was flanking, he could have just 1v. Such a clean Braum by Afro.
Afro showing baseball being the great American sport. Easy catch on that one. But
you see the value in the Braum pick though throughout this whole fight. It's just he's jumping in front of Syndra, blocking her R. Like, he's blocking Ezreal ultis. Like, it's such a valuable pick here. It's strong against what they have too. So I think that was really important for the comp for CLG.
It just feels so simple for Aphromoo.
Yeah.
Exhaust the Olaf, leap in front of whoever enough to get into that backside.
And that's the difficulty, is we see this kind of start to the play without the ghost. The ghost to begin it up, and then just can't really follow through. At this point, he's already been hit by the ult, trying to get in there, and CLG are able to kind of turn around the rest of the fight. And it's just a little rough. It wasn't actually Stixxay he would have found himself on. I believe it was Darshan at the beginning, but there's just not too much that Trick can do to rescue his team from this. He's like so far down.
It's just, I saw from the previous game, like, he got his team some advantages, but there's a kill there. But he just takes too many risks when he doesn't need to. Like, he takes risks like he's losing, but he's actually just going even. And I think you don't need to take risks at that point. You just play a slow game where you can win because you feel like you're the stronger team.
Yeah, definitely going to see them take a mid lane tower now. Not terrible for G2. Not even going to get the mid lane tower, actually. Curtain call coming. Popped. Mithy next on the sides.
And so much of it at this point is just how G2 are setting up for these. You can see how much vision they tried to get around this mid lane. You can see like 5 or 6 wards, but eventually they just isn't enough to spot Huhi coming up through into the fight, and he gets 4 people with his ult. And CLG, from looking like they were losing their mid tower, gonna gain G2s, and that's all of the outer towers down now. So suddenly your Olaf flanks become incredibly even more difficult. You can't get those pathways safely into the mid lane, so it's kind of time is running out.
Just, I mean, really disastrous once again as we watch CLG kind of continue to take as G2 are forced on the back foot here. We'll take a look at that replay, see exactly how this all transpired.
This was the kill onto Aphromoo, so Trick brings some of the damage, was able to get it, but not too much more from G2 after that. Where is it that Huhi actually comes from? He runs all the way up the river and is spotted on 2 wards, and G2 start to back away, but they don't spread out. So Proto Belt into the ult.
Wait, he missed the Proto Belt. But yeah, it's like that ghost is so hard to predict. You see him in the river, but by that time you're like, oh, we have like 10 seconds, but we're hitting Jhin ulti, and he's just ghosted. So you really realistically only have like 3 seconds, so you really need to make smart decisions and fast.
Interesting indeed. Of course, I want to hit up Twitter one more time as we see the game stall out here, at least for a brief moment. We have one question coming in from Nico. Nico Urabe says, to gain elo, is it best to play carry junglers like Kha'Zix or the more supportive picks like Rek'Sai? Of course, we do have 2 relative carry junglers in this game, but in solo queue, Inori, what do you think is going to be the best option?
I feel like that should answer itself. Like, you definitely should play more carry-oriented, because solo queue is solo. It's just you. You need to play as if you're 1v5. That's the best way to carry every game. For my mindset when I'm trying to climb solo queue is I kind of just disregard my 4 teammates and just take all the farm on the map and try to rely on myself to carry. And I get better as a player because I know how to play from a carry perspective, and it's really good for you to get better as a player. But in solo queue, you can't really play that supportive style, especially where the carry jungle meta is so strong. You just have to take the carry style and play champions like Kha'Zix and even Olaf, who's really can be a carry jungler.
Yep. Unfortunately, not a carry jungler this time, as Stixxay is just going to snapshot the back end of that kill. Hand delivered there by Darshan.
Xmithie's going to get found out, but I think he actually should be tanky enough. He has this flash up as well.
No. Looks like they might be able to burn him down. Still working on him, but he does have the extra lifesteal coming in. Flash away. Nice ult from Smith.
That was an NA flash.
Oh, that's bad. That is not where you want to be. Huhi now on a killing spree, going off on this Vladimir, backed up by the rest of his team, and only 1 has dropped so far in this bloodbath. Trick now making his way in, but now set to get stunned. Does ult?
Can't get anything from this fight. Trick from the bottom side, just nothing.
Why was Xmithie even in that brush? I feel like that's kind of a solo queue move. You're like, heh, I'm going to pink this brush, I'm going to sit in there, I'm going to fed grades, I'm going to one-shot someone.
Fortunately, the only person who he could not one-shot, or one of 2, was who walked into the bush. Yeah. Mithy and Trick both would have been free to walk away, but praying for PerkZ, Fenner expect. Maybe not the best play coming in for Xmithie, but at the end of the day, CLG still fine.
I think that's the play you do when you're like, we win. I'm just so confident we're going to win this game. I'm going to just do it something really solo queue style-ish.
I think there doesn't seem to be any real reason for CLG not to kind of be in that mindset as well. Being so far ahead, he had the pink ward down, but I think he was just waiting on Zven to cross because Huhi's chasing him down. He wasn't banking on Mithy coming up. And
well,
unfortunate flash.
We do have the red ward down there as well, so it is possible that Xmithie was spotted out, that they were aware of his position. But either way, this is just unfortunate because CLG still take advantage despite G2 potentially having the superior information there. Now moving in though, you can see Olaf, desperate to finish some items, has the Kindle Gem, maybe working towards a Dead Man's Plate or a Sunfire Cape.
Most likely going to be the Dead Man's. Could also go more into the MR items for Saj if you wanted to, but at this point, no matter what you're building, Trick, it doesn't really matter. I think they need something really cheesy, really need a Baron to pull themselves in this game. I would try to set up Vision like somewhere in topside jungle, but it's obviously CLG's plan is the same. They want to push you out and take Baron for themselves.
This is one of the lowest participation games I think we've ever seen from Trick. He had the Lee Sin game where he was super low, in week 1, but man.
That was just fat. There goes another one. Unfortunately, G2 are just getting torn apart by CLG here. They're diving into the tier 3, ready to go at a moment's notice. And you know, normally we look to have these really back-and-forth jungle matches, really talk about the intricacies of pathing, but for this game, it just feels like Xmithie has completely outclassed Trick.
And it's ever since he just got that early play up on the top side, steals the red from Trick going to the bottom side, goes up into the top lane, ends up picking up a kill from it, and suddenly Trick just loses control of his entire jungle and doesn't get a second red. There's nothing really to do.
The thing is, I don't know if it's so hard to really judge a jungler if you don't know the comms. Like, I don't know if Trick fed that information to expect. That's something I would instantly realize. I mean, like, I left my red up, the jungle choose me was just a blue. Like, he should know that my top side is available, so he would automatically go for my top side. That's something I would assume. And normally I let my top laner know. I think he might have let Expect know, but Expect got greedy for that one wave. He's like, I'm gonna shove it in, I'll reset, and they'll be good. So I don't know too much, but I don't want to put it on Trick completely, but I still think he had really bad pathing in this game.
Really rough. We're going to see now the contestant for the Dragon. Twitter, I want to get to your questions, but they just keep killing each other, and we have to talk about it. Of course, now finally backing off, so that does give us a window. Nicholas Kent asks, how can a jungler dodge wards or path to make the bot lane, or to make bot lane easier to gank? Is a second question in there as well, but we'll start with that one.
For that one, it's mostly, let's say, mostly use bot lane for the first example. Normally, bot lane would ward River as their ward. You want to dodge that ward by going around through mid into their jungle and come through try. So you just have to consider what the normal wards are for laners. Normally they ward the simple spots. So like if I'm trying to gank ball lane, I'll do what I just said. Like I'll go through their jungle and come through try. Gap wall jumping to champions are always the best for ganking because they can go through Dragon Pit and get over walls. You just have to be creative when you're ganking lanes. You don't want to go, hey, I'm going to go through this. It's probably warded, but I'll take my 50-50. You just want to kind of get creative because if you get more creative, most likely ganks are going to be more successful. Like whenever I try to come through weird spots, they actually always work. And I'm always like, maybe I'll just keep doing that. And it always works when you do that stuff.
And that's the difficulty, right? Because the other half of this question is like, where is the lane? Where is the minion wave? Can you just get into the back of the lane? Because almost nobody is going to ward that in most ranks of solo queue. Like, so few people have that warded all the time. So that's the other half of the question is like knowing where the wards can possibly be at the same time. So it's...
Yeah, I think the major point is just come from behind. You want to be a flanker. You want to get behind, force them to come to you. That's the best way to do it. So try to always come through behind them. And if you really can, if they have CC to begin with, try to get them to CC them first. You don't want to rely on yourself to start the CC.
Interesting. Of course, the second half of the question is, which of these junglers do you feel like is better overall? Of course, jungle champions, I believe, was the question. I can't 100% be sure of the intent there. Because clearly the better jungler for this game, sad to see for the G2 fans, has been Xmithie.
Junglers all have strengths and weaknesses. Like if I look at Olaf, I say his ganking is his strength. His weakness may be his over-aggression. Personally, that's tricks. And I think I look at Graves, I say he's such a strong farmer. Like he can power farm, scales really hard into late game. And you just see this champion's strength and you just kind of value them at that point. Like if Trick got more ganks off, you'll be like, oh wow, Graves is so useless, all he does is farm. But if Graves just super farms and Trick doesn't get ganks off, you'll be like, oh wow, look at Graves, he's so farm ahead. And stuff like that.
That's the difficulty, right? Because like would you want to play a whole bunch of Graves in solo queue if you couldn't guarantee your lanes for winning? Like, is it difficult at that point? I
mean, the thing about Graves is he can actually just 1v5. Like he's such a ridiculous champion that you just get all your items, you just go crazy. Like right now, this is such a scary point. If I saw a mob PD on the Graves, I'd be like, hell no, I'm gonna get the hell out of there. Like I don't want to mess with that guy. He's at a point where he can really duel so many people. It's just a really strong build, and it's not that expensive too. PD's a pretty cheap item. And you look at Trick's build, like he's in the struggle. He's not making that much gold. He's still trying to work his way up to that MR item.
Trick's gotta be careful though.
He spots him as that red.
See the silhouette of the Graves. One of my favorite changes, of course, of the sweeping lens there.
So obviously this game's slowed down a little bit with regards to a lot of what the jungle matchup is. I kind of want to. I know it's not the Worlds patch related. Have you played a little with Ivern yet, or against him? Obviously, being jungle focused, I thought maybe with
for Ivern, I try to hover him in my champ select, and then my teammates just ban him and say, hey, I don't want you to play that champion because I think you suck. and I think you suck at that champion, so I'm going to ban it so I can spare you low. And I get really mad, and I just lock in some troll jungler, and I just play Rumble jungle, and I just farm AFK farm. But yeah.
He's, of course, joking, Riot support. Don't ban him, please.
I actually have like such a high win rate on him. Rumble jungle is so fun. I love playing stuff like that. It's just, I want to play Ivern too, but my teammates never give me a chance. I think he's such a cool champion design. Like the first of the junglers who don't actually kill the jungle. Like he saves the jungle camp. Like I want to be someone who saves the jungle. I want to be a hero for the jungle
Look,
camps.
Kita and the World Wildlife Foundation, I'm sure, thoroughly appreciate your commitment to Ivern. I'd be excited. I want to see it in pro play. I'd be excited for next season.
Like I haven't seen him in solo queue yet because he's permabanned because I guess teams don't want their teammates to play it. But
Probably.
I think he's actually good. I think he's just so complicated. Like he's not your typical jungler. You can't play in one game and be like, hey, I mastered this champion, guys.
Yeah, I think that's the most.
Yeah.
Picks coming in.
I think he's just something that takes a lot of time and really understanding. Like you think pathing is hard now, consider this one jungler whose pathing revolves around, hey, I'm gonna put this jungle camp on 30-second timer. I'll be back later to pick it up.
Oh, Huhi going in.
Plan that ahead. And Vladimir is ridiculous. Just, and he's full health.
Just got Ezreal out of the way.
Now there's one more dead. Unfortunately, CLG are just cleaning up house, continuing to move forward, taking down members of G2 left and right. Expect doing his best to mitigate the pressure, but they just don't care. In comes the ult, in comes the damage, and down goes CLG. Or down goes G2. CLG are doing just fine. They're not going anywhere, actually, as it turns out. Fight just continues. 2 members taken down. No creep wave to protect them, so unfortunately CLG are in between a rock and a hard place.
Thing is, if they keep fighting here, like CLG are trying to get out of the base, trying to be done with this fight. Trick wants to continue to go.
See Sven's eager on the front, but man, this is just pretty disastrous.
Sad to watch, to be honest.
Unfortunately, yes, especially as an EU caster who's going to bear with us here. Hui's just going to heal up. CLG
so sorry
just
for
going
your
to walk
loss.
away. Hey, man. It's okay. I won't sing Oh Danny Boy, I'll spare the audience, but just know that it's playing in my head right now. So, moving in, I want to continue to hit these Twitter questions. Matthew Walker asks, who would you say is the top jungler on this patch and why? And of course, speaking about 618, and speaking, of course, about junglers, here goes Trick.
It would probably be either in Italy or even Lee Sin. I think they're such versatile champions.
Oh, Xmithie.
Flash over the wall for Xmithie. Style.
Even Graves could be up there. I think it's so like there's so many strong junglers right now. It's just hard to really pick one.
And this, my friends. Oh, PerkZ highlight reel? He's not, unfortunately, look like. Oh, he's dancing. He's dancing. He danced and he emo PM'd.
Sadly, that probably would be a highlight reel for him, how he played this Worlds group.
I mean, the thing is, I don't want to take too much credit away from G2. They're already down and out. They've struggled this game. It has been rough for them, and CLG seem poised to take this one. We talked about kind of just the jungle pool being wide open. And I want everyone to know that we're not normally this casual here on the LL stream. We try to keep professional, but sadly, this is the state of things for G2.
But yeah, I think, sorry.
No.
I think Trick is really, he needs to tone down his aggression. Like if I'm going to just judge junglers right now, I say Trick, tone down your aggression, play more around like vision, play more around your teammates, don't play so selfishly. And I think if Xmithie just keep playing the way he's playing, like he's playing really strong, plays around information, he plays actually like, plays accurate, has that good R shots, and he just plays smart. Like I think that's the way junglers should be playing right now. I think Trick is just lacking in that criteria.
It just kind of begs the question of like what's going on with Trick, because it seems like this massive departure from the regular split that we saw the entire time. Like if ever there was one player that you would say went into every single game for G2 and generally did well, the number of times that I had to figure out why I should not give Trick player of the game, just to be like, did he do anything to take it away? It was just insane, and that's not saying that we obviously don't want to give it to one player if they constantly are the best, but for G2, he was the rock that really kept them going.
I think I don't want to say EU's weak. I just think this is the world stage. This is where the best teams are coming from across the world. I think G2 was just so much better than the competition in EU. They could play. They didn't get exploited. Their weaknesses were never exploited. They never really had to try super hard. I feel like display was relatively easy for them, right? Like they kind of steamrolled really hard. And I think getting to world stage, you see their weaknesses getting exploited. Maybe just losing isn't a norm for them. They're just not they're not comfortable now knowing they're like losing games. It's just hard for them to take it in. Like maybe Trick just feels like his style worked back in like maybe just in one region, but playing in the world, you really need to adapt your style and play to like what the world's playing, kind of thing.
I mean, definitely a solid case. You know, explaining what happened here for G2 on the world stage, definitely disappointing. They promised more after their failures at MSI, and unfortunately it has not shown up for them yet. Maybe they can find a few wins here in their last 2 games, but this game certainly does not look like it. And it's a sad state of affairs, but it is good news for fans in NA as CLG. We were scared there, and we still should be scared that they may not make it out of the group stage, but they are much, much closer now.
Still pretty scared after that last game.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like ANX versus G2 is going to be G2's last game of this tournament, and PvP Steos looking really good, and Trick this game not looking so hot. This looks like it might be the final fight.
Yeah, PerkZ in trouble, does look set to be burned down. Rumble coming out, PerkZ trying to make it out, knocked up, taken out. Huhi on the backside, absolutely unkillable as is the status quo for Fed Vladimir's, but Trick, he's finally going to find the 1v1 he wanted. Or is he walking away? Here goes the trigger, maybe looking for a bit of lifesteal. Here comes the Poppy, ult is gone.
Oh,
and
no,
so is
Trick.
Trick. One final eulogy for G2. I mean, this is, we said it. G2 outclassed. Inori, you have your theories, and whatever theories you share for the people at home. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, CLG are now winning this game, and G2 are down and out.
So unfortunate. I love their aggression, but I think they need to tone it down, especially Trick. Just kind of play more conservative if you're on the world stage, you know? Like, a lot matters. Like, you can play this game slow. You don't have to take that risk where it's like a regular season.
Yeah, I think what we saw there, definitely a rough game for G2. Of course, congrats to CLG for finding the win there. A very close group stage among the top 3 teams. Rocks, CLG, Albus, Nox, all fighting for that slot in G2. You know, struggling to find, I think, even their own team cohesion at this point. But at the end of the day, solid win. And interestingly enough, Xmithie, person a lot of people counted as one of the lower tier junglers of this tournament, has absolutely shown up and outclassed a lot of the competition. And
I think you can say a lot for his growth over the year, because kind of the answer that a lot of the NALCS guys have had to that is, well, actually Summer Split, Xmithie did look really good, and we were saying, okay, well, yeah, we've now looked at it in game, and Reignover, the CLG bootcamp, seems to have done wonders to his early game as well. Seems to have really, you know, shored up a lot of those areas where perhaps you could have criticized him. And I can't really see too many faults with Xmithie's play in a lot of the games that CLG have played.
Yeah, I definitely think Xmithie's playing clean. Like I said, I think he plays with his information. He really thinks about his decisions and how they impact his teammates. I think Trick is more of a selfish jungler. He plays more of like, hey, I want to get these kills for myself. I want to snowball my own advantages and see how that goes.
I'm curious how you think he's going to stack up against Peanut later in the day. Now, Peanut has been struggling as well. We've seen Xmithie go down and out in a few of his games, but they did win, of course, last time around. Who do you think takes the edge in that matchup?
To be honest, I think Peanut's trolling a bit. Like, I see him watching his camps. He's just laughing, having a good time. I think he's such a good jungler. Like, Peanut is one of the best Korean junglers, and I think if he really tries 100%, like, I think out of groups we're going to see, like, his full potential. I think right now he's kind of, like, taking it a little bit easy because it's first an international event, so I think Peanut's much superior to. Actually, I'm not gonna say that. People are gonna.
You're
like,
so scared.
People are gonna say stuff. Yeah, people are
inconsistent.
gonna say stuff. But I'll say Peanut's really strong jungler, and I think Xmithie needs to pick up a lot to compete with him.
There's one thing you can't overlook, because Peanut doesn't always come on his own. It's Smeb as well, and I don't know whether Darshan can hang out with that with Xmithie.
That's
another thing.
Pretty tough. We'll have to figure it out later in the day. But when we return, I'll be joined by Frostguard and Gate as we take a look at the first of our 2 looks at the bottom lane on the support role, focusing on Liquid and Gorilla. And in the meantime, let's toss it back over to the mainstream, where Dash and the rest of the analyst desk are breaking down the game already in progress. Thanks for watching.
Getting ahead, so they pick the Syndra, and it's exactly the same.